Good morning to you two ladies. Has it been hot wherever you've stood this week?
Just a little bit.
I don't even hear people saying, hot enough for you? Yeah, it's hot enough.
Well, as long as I'm in the house under the air conditioner.
Yeah.
And I sit right under it, so. But I get cool, I cover up. And Clayton asked me, he said, well, why don't you just turn your air conditioner on? I said, cause the rest of the house will get hot then. And I said, I don't want the house to get hot. And he said, well, I hadn't thought about that. I said, well, that's just why I do what I do when I do. I said, I got a blanket. I sit right under the air conditioner. I said, so I can just cover up and let it go. We do what we do, and that's it.
I used to, as I grew up, I could just feel heat radiating from my body. So and I was always very thin because of my metabolism. Evidently, whatever burns calories in my body worked full force, and I was just always warm and uncomfortable no matter the weather. And then after my heart attack, I had to start taking blood thinners and everything, and now I freeze to death. I get cold. Started wearing lots of clothes even to bed. Used to wear just kind of a short pants, night pants, and a t-shirt. Now
I started to say when I'm sitting there by myself, I put on long pants and I put on a shirt, long sleeve shirt and sit there. That way I don't have to cover up. I'm covered up.
Well, I wear socks just about all the time, and I have to try to think that to change my socks every day so that my feet don't fall off.
I've got a pair I put on every once in a while, but most of the time I go barefooted 99% of the time.
I used to.
When I go out somewhere, that's when I put my shoes on.
Every once in a while, I'll think of something that's, I might have my shoes off. Haven't done this in a long time either, though. I don't know why I'm mentioning it, but if I was barefooted, if I had to go outside and walk on the gravel on the driveway, and I thought, I used to, it hurt so bad, I just almost pass out. And I remember when I was a little boy, I could run on railroad tracks,
yeah.
and it never bothered me.
That's because you were used to it. You were going
I had calluses on my feet too.
Yeah.
I had calluses on my feet, and I could walk on nails. Is Sully still in the hospital? Okay, let's continue to pray for Sully. Then sometimes that can last weeks. They hydrate them, and they put them under ambient lights and infrared, and beef up their vitamins, and so the mom and dad, if they want to see them, they have to go there and spend time with them. So, but let's continue to pray for him. Danny Ward is still recuperating from shoulder and arm surgery. Always, Kira Randall, our niece, has been home from Guam. Her husband's serving in Guam, but has been home from Guam for about 6 weeks now. But I think today she's flying back to Guam. Kind of mixed feelings about that. Wanting to see Anthony, but they've been here with their family. Last Sunday afternoon, we had her daughter's birthday party here at the church, Ilea. And I think we got another stretch of birthdays coming up soon. But right now, yesterday, I had a Saturday off yesterday. I feel like I rested a little bit. You tell my eyes are puffy. I kind of laid around the house. I got some things done. Pray for Kira and Ali as they fly back. And I met Anthony's. I had already met Anthony's mother and sister, so I met her. Anthony's dad and his brother, and they're all military. They're all Richard is retired military, I think, and Ryan's brother is active. So they're a military family, And Kira knew that when she was getting on board, I suppose. I know. You never can, that doesn't seem like something you would realize everything about it until you're already hip deep into it, though. Find out some things. Living on a base, being an Army wife, military wife. Pray for Lucy. I hope that she's gotten the care package that was sent. Mackie Watts, former pastor, he preached here for us about 6 or 8 weeks ago, but he became very ill last weekend. He had some kind of infection that affected his kidneys and so forth. I spoke with him yesterday, and he's home from the hospital, but the deacons sent they were having Candy, his wife, was having to stay in a hotel. Hit him up in Tennessee, I think, so they had to kind of just stay up there on a vacation, I think, and got sick. Only thing worse, there may be lots of worse things, not the only thing worse. One thing worse, I've always enjoyed traveling around the world, but I've been sick a few times on other places, and I've never have had the same confidence with other hospitals that I have here in the United States. We were talking about dentists a while ago, but continue to pray for Mackie. He said he's home, just a little weak. Johnny Harwell is still struggling after some strokes. Victoria, I kept thinking each day this week that might get news that she had brought forth, but I saw some pictures on Facebook yesterday. She looks like she's ready. I don't know if that's impolite or not. Miss Mama Ima probably wouldn't like it much, but anyway, pray for Victoria and for Andrew. I took some pictures in the nursery. We did that too. We took, here, okay, we're ready. A big old pile of diapers and some baby wipes, and the bed has been assembled. The room has been painted. It no longer smells like paint, and we're good to go. All we need now is a baby. So pray for Victoria and Andrew. Today is James Ward's birthday. It seems in my memory that he proudly last year celebrated his 80th birthday. I think that's correct. So this is 81, if I'm right. But
he's a kid then.
Addison had a dance recital Thursday night. So she has kind of a knee problem. Awfully young to be having an injury that hinders her dancing. Her dancing career may be in jeopardy. I don't know. Trying to play soccer too. Probably just overextension. Is there someone that I'm missing from our prayer list, or something that I've overlooked or forgotten? Let me kind of look back. I haven't spoken with Ann this weekend. She was on my call list, but I didn't reach out to her, so I trust that she is recovering and has recovered from COVID.
We usually mention Liz's sister.
Yeah, Ina Martin. Our doctor has said her time she's facing a time issue. She's just it's just one of those end of life situations. Ina's a good person. Thank you for remembering her. Betsy goes this week to Vanderbilt. I think she said the 27th, which is Wednesday. So going back to Vanderbilt University Hospital so Ned has had difficulty with mobility, but he's her ride. So pray for them. Those things are all day and sometimes all day and all night situations. So pray. Always pray for Donna Serta as she tunes in. Henry and Linda Crow. I saw when I think of the Crows, I appreciate their introduction of the Runnels to us. And I saw on Jason's postings in most social media that Braden had been taking care of other things. So Jason was singing solo, but Braden is back singing with him now, which I'm sure is encouraging. He was excited about it. And I think Braden will be able to be with him. We have Jason and Braden lined up to be with us in November. So pray for the Runnels. Linda Sue Brown, I saw a video of her a couple of weeks ago singing. I don't know if she was singing at Walden Chapel. I don't know if she's singing anywhere else. But she was very ill at the beginning of summer and hospitalized a couple of different times. Pray for her. We had a couple of memorial services for Bill Cook and for Milton Mahaffey this week. Friends of members of our family. There may have been others. Well, let's pray together, and then we're going to look. I like the stories and the history in Kings and Chronicles. I don't remember my grandmother telling me these stories. They're a little bit. Some of them are a little bit dark. Jonah being swallowed by a whale. That sounds very much like something a child could enjoy. Some of these things are pretty dark, but as an adult, I grew to appreciate them, and they're quite dramatic. But let's pray. Pray for you, and pray for those who are tuned in this morning. I trust that our stream is working. I had to reboot the Wi-Fi router this morning. You get things going. It's not being used much during the week. It kind of goes to sleep. But I hope we're broadcasting. If you're out there, I spoke with one of our young people from the past, Lee, and I swapped a few messenger messages this week, and it was always good to hear her. She tunes in quite often. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for your word. It don't always understand everything, and study is not always productive. We trust you. I think the biggest challenge, Lord, is that much of this happened a long time ago. Help us to understand that it's relevant for today, but requires that you interpret it into our heart and life. Help us to draw those kind of lessons from what we read. There is the enjoyment of reading an account, a history, a lesson, but it only has value, I know, Lord, if we learn something and you teach us. We're open to that. Thank you for these for whom we've prayed. Work in their lives. We ask in your name. Amen. I hear a racket. Who is it? Hey.
Hey.
Are you smiling?
Hey.
Good morning.
Smile.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you say good morning to the ladies?
Honey.
Hey. Hey.
She can't
Can
wait.
you
She's
wave at
holding
me?
something.
Can you wave?
We're in 2 Kings now. Again, as our lessons do, and as I saw Brother Ken put a kind of a photographic illustration on his Facebook page yesterday. It showed a man. He looked like he was putting about a 20-foot beam into the trunk of his car in a store parking lot. Needless to say, a little of it was in the trunk and a whole lot of it was just sticking out. And he says this is a pastor trying to get everything that he studied and learned about in the preparation of his sermon into a 30-minute message on Sunday. And believe me, that is true. You think, well, preachers just preach so long. My goodness, if we preached everything that we had studied, that's the big thing. Sometimes we do. And our sermons get very long if we try to cover everything that we looked into. But we investigate, we pray and study, and we look at things, we learn things, and somehow or another we have to cull it down where it's not so everlasting long. I heard someone say once that sermons do not have to be everlasting to be eternal. So it's a good quip too. So we didn't cover everything in 1 Kings. We didn't look at every verse. But we did last look at Elijah. Now we pick up with continuing story of Elijah in 2 Kings. The story of Elijah being taken up into heaven is in chapter 2, 2 Kings chapter 2. Elisha, in the process of the way things worked, a man named Elisha kind of became Elijah's protege. He was his assistant, his right-hand man. They were men of differing characters, both prophets of God, one in training, the other quite seasoned. Elisha, it's unusual. I believe that Elijah is more popular in Christian circles and even among Jewish people. Elijah is prominent, and he's kind of like one of the superheroes of the faith. However, we know more about Elisha. Elisha was far more powerful. In the lesson we see why. But anyway, this is one of those things. Elijah has accomplished great things, but we saw him underneath the juniper tree, and God's working with him, and honestly, Elijah has gotten to the place where he has truly lost heart. He's lost heart. He became discouraged. He was despondent. There had always been this nagging sense of stress and pressure and difficulty on his life. It was a difficult time to be a believer. Baalism was very popular. But it seems like Jezebel's thread against his life was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It was just too much. There is a sense in which I think God knows how much we can take. Now, some people will say God will never put more on you than you can bear. Well, he kind of did to Elijah. He put more on Elijah than Elijah could bear. And Elijah said, no, I want to die. I'm ready to die. So it was more than he could carry. And God did, in a sense, as a father, he did rebuke Elijah. He said, the angels came and said, what are you doing here? And then Elijah said, I'm the only one left. I'm the only one. I love you, God, and I've been very jealous and zealous for you, but I'm all you got now. And God says, well, nonsense. There's a lot of them out there. And then he indicated to Elijah that he was bringing Elijah's ministry to an end. Ministers, we all have different feelings about retirement. You're going to quit. When you're going to hang it up. Now, I don't know for me. I'm 66 years old now. Sometimes I get very tired. I think for a long time now I've been looking for excuses to quit, and God says, no, you can't quit. Keep going. But he got to a place with Elijah where he says, okay, I've got a replacement lined up for you. The thing is, though, is that he's going to send a fiery chariot for Elijah and take him right up into heaven, and he's not going to experience physical death. So you think, wow, that's not too bad. That's better than a gold watch. That's better than a retirement certificate or a good retirement income. So God knows when we're worn out and used up, and it is not his intention ever to just grind us into the dust. So here, this is one of the most dramatic and elaborate departures. Over in Genesis, we have the story of Enoch. Enoch was the grandson of Noah. And it says that Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. So Enoch was the first person who is described as someone who God literally just took up into heaven. Yeah. So, but not very dramatic. Just, he was not, for God took him. Then he was gone. But with Elijah, it's like a whole chapter of build-up and drama, and then the act. So the fiery horse-drawn chariot, and we have no idea what he was. What, Elisha saw it, and Elijah saw it, and he got on board, and it took him off up into the heavens. I mean, man, that's really, that's all right. You know, if God made sure that his departure was a recognition, a celebration. It was dramatic. It was suiting to the character of this great prophet, who stood in the face of probably one of the most wicked kings who's ever lived, Ahab. They know that this is the places this is going to happen, or Elijah does. So he says, "Well, I'm going." Elisha says, "Well, I'm going with you." And he said, "Well, all right." So they went, and they got to a certain place. It's kind of like a stopping place, or resting place, or a location. He says, "All right, you stay here. I got to go a little bit further." Elisha said, "No, I'm going with you." You know, students, disciples, people who are they're kind of supposed to do what you tell them to do. And Elisha said, No, I'm with you. And then they went to another place. There's 3 different places, and in each place, Elijah said, "Okay, we're just almost there, and I appreciate you coming, and here we are, but you stay here." And they said, No. And then they got to a place, Elijah, what today, and many clergy have certain garments that they wear. Southern Baptists never have. We never have had collars or wear crucifixes. We don't dress in a particular way. But Elijah had a mantle which was like a cloak, and it identified him. When you saw that kind of person, is like seeing a nun with their habit on, or a priest with their collar. A prophet had a mantle, a big kind of a cloak, wore around his shoulders, over his head, carried it on his arm. It was like a uniform. So they got to the Jordan River, and that's the last stop. And Elijah takes that mantle, and he takes it and he strikes the Jordan River water with it, and it parts, and they walk across on dry land. And Elijah knows that it's just about time to thing to happen. He has an idea. He said, "I'm going home." Didn't have any idea probably about the fiery chariot. That was a surprise for everybody. And he looks at Elisha and he says, "Okay, what can I give you? What do you want? You're going to be taking my place. You're going to be the prophet that God what?" And boy, this Elisha said, "I want a double portion of your spirit." Really? Man, I want a double portion of your spirit. Evidently, the Spirit of God was very strong upon Elijah, and he says, I want to be, you're a powerful man, and I want to be twice as powerful. And this is not like wanting political power or popularity. He wasn't asking to be famous or infamous. He was saying, I want to do more for God than you did. And so Elijah said, all right. And when he was swept up, it says that his mantle fell from him, that garment, and it fell on Elisha. And Elisha gathered up the mantle of Elijah. And then the chariot took off. Oh, wow. So Elisha comes back, comes to the Jordan River, takes that mantle, strikes the waters part, and he walks across on dry land. And there were several followers, other disciples and followers of Elijah on the other side that had not been given permission to follow and had not persisted to follow. And they detected almost immediately that Elisha was brimming and just glowing with the power of Elijah. Now, we have some stories of Elisha dealing with the kings, dealing with it's called Aram, but it's Syria, and he helps out as Elijah had. he is in the company of a widow, and it's another one of those situations where he stays with her and provides for her. He raises the woman's son, just like Elijah had done. Then there was a place where he made some water that had been poisonous, and he cured it, made it pure. Now let's look at chapter 5, because this is really what our lesson book picks up on. It's the story of Naaman. Now, I remember even when I began hearing the story of Naaman, and I do remember seeing it in Sunday school. I didn't realize that Naaman was not a Hebrew. He was for all practical purposes, a Syrian. But he is a military leader in Syria, and he's very accomplished. He has a great reputation. He's a great military man, has many accolades to his name, but he has a disease. Now, the Bible, the King James Version, calls it leprosy, and that was today we know leprosy as we have different medical definitions, so it's called Hansen's disease. But from different Christian medical scholars have looked through the Bible and said that they almost always called any kind of skin disease, probably even cancer, or thing they called it leprosy. That was their general title. But let's look here at 2 Kings chapter 5. Now Naaman, captain of the house of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. If God is truly the creator of the universe, if he is the one true God, then he's the God of all the people of the earth. People in this time, in the time of the history we're looking at, they thought, well, this nation has their God, and this nation, they have their known because they believe in this God. Everybody had their own God. Every nation are gods. Sometimes they just had a whole pantheon of gods. And for Israel, the Lord was their God. And you hear that expressed in the Bible. It says, I am the Lord, I am your God. And I'm the God. If you're going to have a God, believe in the Lord as your God. When Elijah faced the prophets of Baal, he said, if Baal be God, then serve him. But if the Lord is God, then serve him. That's the terminology. Here are some people that they're not Hebrews. They're not under the Mosaic law. They don't worship the God of the Hebrews. But here, God is dealing and meddling in their history and their lives and their existence. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naaman's wife. Well, she was a slave. She was a part of the spoils of war. It says right here that they went out, they fought some people, and one of the captives that they took away was this little girl. Now, this is not a condoning slavery. This is not the Bible or even God saying, see, there are good things about slavery. Well, it's not what it's saying at all. There are lots of wrong things that people have always embraced, and God has to work with us where we are. And we have been given by him freedom and liberty, and we choose things that God doesn't want us to choose. He doesn't want us to marry a bunch of husbands or wives. He doesn't want us to harm each other and murder each other and kill each other. He doesn't want war, and he doesn't condone slavery. But here is a situation where this little girl believes in God, and God sees that, okay, I can use that. And that's what he's going to do. It's not saying, boy, see there, if she hadn't been a slave, if slavery didn't exist, this never would have happened. that's a false way of reasoning. That logic is skewed. No, this is the situation. She waited on Naaman's wife. She said unto her mistress, Would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him from his leprosy. So I just wish. Now she's talking about Elisha. Yep. I wish, because he served he was in Samaria, and he said, I wish that he knew Elisha. And one went in and told his Lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is the land of Israel. Now, let me tell you something, and you know this. This is not something you don't know. When you're sick, and I think I'll have this heart condition, and I'll be diabetic and have high blood pressure. But those are not really terminal diseases. But I see family and friends, people I love and care for, who are facing situations where they're going to die. They're sick and they feel so bad. And sometimes I sense despair. I get tired of taking medicine. My goodness, I take so much medicine.
Not well.
I think I rattle every morning. I take a big handful in the morning, a bigger handful at night, and sometimes I'll just sit on the edge of the bed at night, and there are about 10 or 12 pills that I have to take at night before I go to bed, and sometimes I'll just sit on the edge of the bed and I said, I'm just not going to do it. And I know when I wake up in the morning that I'm not going to feel well, because some of those actually, really help a lot. But I just something mental about that. I said, no, I'm just.
And some of them let you sleep.
Yeah.
Or if you don't take it, you won't sleep that well.
And I don't know. It's very contrary, and you think, well, why would you do that? I don't know. But I just want to turn off the light and lay my head down and just not now.
You don't have to shoot up?
No, I don't have to poke myself. I have in the past, but that kind of came and went
I
too.
take 45 in the morning and 25 at night. I'm a diabetic, so
I'm only type 2, and right now I take metformin, 2 pills in the morning and 2 pills at night as my diabetic medicine. And I've went through a thing where my A1C was too high, and I was having to use an injector. I injected on my stomach, a self-injector. Didn't have to use a hypodermic needle, but I don't do that anymore. But sometimes when doctors just are saying, I don't know what your problem is, I can't help you, or they try things and they don't work. So this man was desperate. He, if a slave girl comes in and says, I heard if you put some vinegar on that, it will cure it right up. Yeah, I've heard if you rubbed a frog on that would just go away. There was a man, the grandfather to our neighbors, little girls. I had warts all over my hands when I was a little boy. That's a long ago memory. My hands were covered with warts. So he could take warts away. He could take them. It's okay. I'm going to your papa then, and he took a quarter and he rubbed them all over those. They're gone now, but I don't think it was because he magically made them all go. But I was willing. If anybody I had one wart that was right here, and it was huge wart, and I was always injuring it. I was always knocking it off with something and banging it, and it would bleed, and it was there for years. To a little boy, 2 years might have just seemed like an eternity, but it was at least 2 or 3 years. But they went away with age, and people say, "What would you do? Handling frogs? Warts don't come from frogs, you knucklehead. You don't get warts from frogs. It's like a virus." Anyway, I don't know if I was desperate or not, but I went to Papa Fulmer and see if he could make my warts go away. And the king of Syria, says in verse 5, said, Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed, and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 pieces of gold, and 10 changes of raiment. So he's loading him down. He really values this captain. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now, when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naaman my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him from his leprosy. It came to pass that when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he tore his clothes, and he says, Am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man doth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Wherefore consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. He was pretty sure it was a trap. So, I sent you my servant, and you didn't make him well, so I'm going to come over there and start a war with you. Well, the king of Israel said, Oh, man, he's wanting me to heal him. And it was so that when Elisha, the man of God, had heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman came with his horses and with his chariot, and he stood at the door of the house of Elijah. Now look at verse 10. And Elisha sent out a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again unto thee, and thou shalt be clean. He didn't go out and bow to him. He didn't go out and wave to him. He didn't greet him. He sent a messenger. Elisha didn't even go outside and pay the respect of this. This man was the king's best man. And he'd bring lots of money with him. And I don't know if the king kept that or sent it with him to Elisha, but I don't see any more mention of it. But anyway, that's what happens. This Naaman he responded to it. But Naaman was wroth. I like that. It's a good King James word. He was upset. And he went away and said, Behold, I thought he will surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and strike his hand over the place and recover the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Let me tell you something. First time I went to Israel, one of the things that's very popular over is go to the Jordan River, and they have a place there, a park, where you go, and they have robes for you to put on, and you go out into the Jordan River, and people get baptized. And for about 12 hours a day, from in the morning, and that water is cold because it comes right down out of the mountains, right out of Mount Hermon. And it's ice cold. And year-round, it's just ice cold, spring raw water. And people come there, and I always say hundreds and hundreds of people, because it's on the Jordan River there, and it's just a place where people go, and people have, as they've planned their trip to Israel, they've thought about, well, I want to get baptized in the Jordan River. Well, they do. That's the nastiest, dirtiest water I've ever seen in my life. It's just brown. It's just brown water. And it's kind of jungly all along the sides. It's not blue water or pretty water. It's a if you like the foliage, it's a nice enough place, and it's out in the country. It's not the desert land, of course, but the Jordan River is just dirty, muddy. And so he's saying, there are some really nice rivers in Damascus that are better than all the rivers of Israel. May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned away and went in a rage. Now, God made us in his image, and there's a lot of things that are about us that we can look at and say, well, that's a part of God in us. There's a part of God in every person, not just believers. But when God made men and women, there are elements of our character, our nature, that are divine. But there are things about God that are not like us at all. Some of us, we do take up some of his traits, the other traits. I like in the Garden of Eden. I would never put my children in a beautiful garden and then give them an apple tree and tell them they couldn't eat it. I would never do that. I would never say, no, don't eat from this tree. If I didn't want them to eat that tree,
Just keep them
I'd
away
dig it
from
up. I'd put a wall around it. I'd make sure I'd keep them away from it. I'd say, all right, we're going to make it where you can't even get to it. And if I ever saw them, you know, God sees everything. If I ever saw Eve reaching for that, I don't know how you spell ant, but I'd say, leave that alone. And because I know when Eve took the apple, God was standing right there watching it. It's not like he was stupid or that he was gone or away and it snuck up on him. No, God tests us, and he tells us to do things. And you know, does God have some kind of superiority complex where he feels like he needs to give orders and people need to follow him? Well, it's God's intention to be involved in our lives and for us to be involved in him. And so there's got to be some kind of interchange. There has to be a relationship. And it's not the relationship of equals. God is like a parent. He's higher than us. He's greater than us. God is, he's not a human being. Naaman is thinking, couldn't this prophet just come out there and go and just wave his hand and I would be better? And he's not even thinking, couldn't God, if God's going to heal me through Elisha, couldn't God just snap his fingers or say the word? Yes, he could. Elisha could have come out and done that, healed Naaman instantly. It's not a game. It's not a nonsensical expectation. But it is a relationship. It does require, God says something, and it requires faith and obedience. And it's not that God is a tyrant or that requires obedience for his own ego. But we've got to be he wants us to be involved in the process of what he's doing in, through, and for us. Verse 13 says, the servants came near and spake unto him and said, my father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, like go kill a lion, go climb a mountain, wouldst not thou have done it? How much rather then, when he said to thee, go wash and be clean? You see, that's the thing. If he told you to go wrestle a bear, and you went and go jump on that bear immediately. But he said, no, you would have done that, and you would have thought, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, here again, these are servants and people that are serving in the military. And it's really pretty bold of them to speak to him like this. You know, come on. I hope I never get in such a position. I think that's the problem of maybe being in a position of authority, to being the boss or being in charge, that sometimes people are going to say, they're going to be afraid to talk to you. They're going to be afraid to tell you the truth. Okay, so he then went down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God, and his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God, he and all his company, and came and stood before him, and he said, behold, now I know that there is no God in the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. And he said, as the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. And Naaman said, shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules, burden of the earth for thy servant, and will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto any other gods, but unto the Lord. In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimmon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand, and I bow myself in the house of Rimmon, when I bow down myself in the house of Rimmon, the Lord pardon thy servant in this thing. And he said to him, go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. This is it's pretty good stuff. He says, he didn't come saying, man, you're a wonderful, great, powerful man, and you're a man of God, and you're a great prophet. He says, there's only one God, and he's the God of Israel. He says, He said, I'm worried about this. I've been thinking about it. That's what happens when we allow God to make connection. We start thinking right. Our thoughts start falling into place properly. That's why when I see so much insanity, I thought, if you would just get right with God, your thinking would line up. You would begin to see the sense of things. And he says, I know that the king that I serve, that we're going to go into the house of Rimmon, where his false god is, and he's going to lean on my hand. He's going to need me to stand right there. He's going to bow to his God. He said, I just want you right. He said, I want you to know that even though I'm doing that, I'm not going to offer any burnt offering to Rimmon. I'm not going to pray to him because I know who the real God is. And Elijah says, all right, that's fine. So we are put sometimes in situations where it is not politic to chastise our elders or those who are above us in authority. But he was saying, I'm going to let you know that I'm doing my very best to acknowledge that I appreciate what God's done for me. Washing in that old muddy Jordan River, and how he must have celebrated when he came up out of the water and he was cured of that awful disease. And he went straight to Elijah, and he did show us he gave Elisha some mules, and that's all Elisha would take. But he says, I'm sold. I'm a believer now. So it's a wonderful story, and it's about a miracle, however, and so many people find miracles hard to believe. This sounds to me like something that truly happened. And do we see it every day? No, I haven't never seen anything like it in my life. But I believe it to be true, and I believe that Naaman served and loved and worshipped the one true God all his whole life. All right, well, let's continue. Thank you all for those who have tuned in, those of you who are here today. And we'll continue through Kings. Elisha, what a great man of God he was.
You help me up? No.